Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to tackle a topic that sounds, super intimidating, but is actually critical for any big organization: enterprise content migration. We're going to break down a proven method for moving massive digital archives from an old system to a new one, and most importantly, how to do it without losing a single piece of your company's history.
So just think about this for a second. We're not talking about dragging a few folders from one drive to another. We're talking about millions, sometimes even billions of documents. This is the entire digital history of a company. I mean, it's literally like being asked to move a mountain one rock at a time and making absolutely sure that not a single pebble gets lost. So how on earth do you actually pull that off?
So here's the game plan. We're going to walk through this whole journey in 5 clear steps. We'll start by sizing up the challenge itself. Then, we'll get into the critical planning and testing phases. After that, we'll look at the main event, the actual conversion. And finally, we'll cover how you prove without a shadow of a doubt that the whole thing was a success.
Okay, first things first, let's talk about the stakes. This is a real high-wire act. And the #1 rule here is that this entire complex process has to happen in a totally separate, controlled environment. You absolutely cannot risk messing with the live, day-to-day system that the entire business depends on.
So what's the core mission? Well, on paper, it sounds simple, right? Move everything from the old system to the new one. But the complexity is in the details. The goal is a perfect transfer. Every single document, all its associated data, every little digital sticky note or annotation, it all has to land in the new system with one-to-one accuracy. Nothing gets left behind, period.
All right, so how do you even start something this huge? Well, you start with the blueprint. You wouldn't drive across the country without a map, right? And you definitely don't start moving terabytes of critical data with a ridiculously detailed plan. Success is all about the prep work that happens way before the first byte is ever moved.
It all kicks off with the database. The very first thing you do is dive into the source system's database. Doesn't matter if it's SQL, Oracle, whatever. You analyze it to create what's called a master index. This is basically the grand map for every single document in the system. And this is also where you apply important business rules like data retention policies to figure out what actually needs to come along for the ride.
And this is where the real magic starts to happen. We're setting the rules of the road for the data. Think of it like this. You're cleaning up the data for its new home. You might look up an old, outdated department code and replace it with a new one, or you reformat all the dates so they look the same. Maybe you pad invoice numbers with zeros so they sort correctly. It's all about making sure that this old, legacy data is going to fit perfectly into the structure of the new system.
Okay, we've got our map, we've got our rules. Now what? Well, you don't just jump, right? You test the parachute. And that's exactly what this phase is all about. It's one of the most critical parts of the whole process because this is where you de-risk the entire project before the main event. We do this with something called a data interchange test, or DIT for short. Now, the key concept to remember here is wide, not deep. We're not trying to move millions of documents in this test. Instead, we're grabbing a small but very specific sample of documents that, together, test every single one of those mapping rules we just created. The goal isn't volume, it's confirming that our logic works perfectly for every possible scenario.
So what are we actually checking off the list here? Well, basically everything. We're confirming that all our rules are firing correctly. We're making sure the new system can actually read and understand the files we're sending it. We're checking that the numbers match up. And we're even verifying that those little digital annotations end up in exactly the right spot on the right page.
And let me be clear, this part is absolutely non-negotiable. The big, full-scale conversion does not start until the client gives formal, written sign-off on this test. From that moment on, that successful DIT becomes the gold standard. It's the benchmark that every single delivery that follows has to meet.
All right, the plan is solid, the parachute works, now it's time for the main event. This is where we finally put that plan into action and start moving the digital mountain. But here's the thing, we're doing it with a huge amount of confidence because we've already proven it's going to work. And really, the whole conversion process boils down to 3 core steps. It's pretty logical when you see it laid out. First, we extract the data from the old system. Second, we format it all according to our approved rules. And third, we record it onto the delivery media, all packaged up and ready for its new home.
So let's dig into those first 2 steps a little more. The system is smart. It only pulls documents that are actually referenced in that master index we created. Then it takes all those old, weird, proprietary file types and converts them into universal standards like TIFF or PDF. And what's really cool is that it validates every single page to catch any corruption.
And it can even take raw report data and stitch it back together into things like bank statements.
In this last step, everything gets written onto secure, hardware-encrypted media, like a special hard drive. But it's not just a simple copy-paste. Integrity is everything. We use things like MD5 checksums, which are like a unique digital fingerprint for every file, to prove that the data hasn't been changed or corrupted at any point in its journey.
So the mountain has been moved, but we're not done yet, not even close. Now comes the most important part, proving it. This is where we deliver undeniable, rock-solid proof that every single piece of that mountain arrived safely and is accounted for.
And this is the question that keeps people up at night, right? After all this time, money, and effort, how can you be 100% certain that the job is truly done? That nothing, not one single file fell through the cracks?
The answer is all about meticulous accounting. And it comes down to this simple but powerful promise. Every single document will be accounted for. There is no gray area. A document is either successfully delivered or it's listed as a known documented exception. That's it.
And this is how it all adds up. The math has to be perfect. You start with the grand total from the original source database, let's say 1 million documents. Then you take the number of documents that were successfully delivered and imported. You add to that the number of known exceptions. Maybe some files were corrupt or missing from the start, and those two numbers have to add up exactly to that original total.
So, what's the final irrefutable capital P proof? Well, here it is. The unique document ID from the old system is carried over and saved as a keyword in the new system. This is huge because it allows for a direct database-to-database comparison. You can run a query on both systems and prove line by line that every single item made the journey successfully. It's the ultimate audit trail.
So in the end, you see how this incredibly complex process gets broken down into logical, testable, and verifiable steps. It's how you move a digital mountain safely and completely. And that leaves us with just one last question to think about. Your organization's data isn't just data. It's your history. It's your corporate memory. Is it sitting in a system that's truly ready for the future?